Stream quality is good, I think. All right, I think we're live. Let me just double check here really quick, so we can have this up in the background. No, I actually want that still. Oh, sorry guys, YouTube. What to do, YouTube? All right, we are live. Double check here. Yep. Looks like we're good to go. Hey, what is up, guys? It's your boy Bernie here, yet again, bringing you a new live stream. And guys, we have officially upgraded here on the charge. Let me swing my camera a little bit over. I know this isn't the best view of me per se, but this is brand new, guys. We have a brand new PC in here. This PC can handle a lot of stuff. It can handle the video editing that I need. It can also handle live streaming. You know, I have RTX 3080 in my rig right now, and I am very excited about that. And Sean, I wish I would, but I think I'm just gonna play some squad battles as we kind of talk about some of the news and rumors going on in the NBA. I know like playing FIFA and NBA is like an oxymoron, or it doesn't make any sense, but FIFA at the moment is probably one of the favorite games I like to play. And so we're just gonna keep it that way. And let me just make sure, I want to make sure that my settings are good. I don't want this to be like too loud, or like if you guys can hear birds in the background because of where I live. The birds will expose where I live, so I got to make sure I mute them. Let's see here, filters. All right, cool. I kept all my filters perfect. So yeah, this PC brand new. Have a RTX 3080 in here. Also have a AMD 3090-50 in there as well. So 16 cores. It can handle a lot more stuff, and I have upgraded the memory to 32 gigabytes of memory, which is essentially what I really needed, especially with all the, you know, watching videos and kind of playing video games as well. We also have an Elgato 4K now, so once 4K gaming comes to the consoles for next gen, we will also be set for that as well. But yeah, let's get started really quick, guys, and kind of talk about this sort of Tyronn Lue situation. It's been official now that Tyronn Lue is officially the head coach for the NBA, for the Clippers, I should say. And so when we talk about the Clippers, when we talk about everything that happened recently with, you know, guys like Doc Rivers, my biggest concern for the LA Clippers is Tyronn Lue. And I'm not saying that because I don't think Tyronn Lue could do a really good job. I'm saying that because the thing that worries me about Tyronn Lue is that he is having health problems towards the end when he was playing, or when he was coaching for the Cleveland Cavaliers. I felt that, you know, there was the year where they went to the playoffs without Kyrie Irving, and it was just LeBron James and Kevin Love. It just felt like it felt like Tyronn Lue didn't want to be there in terms of like, you know what, screw it, we'll just do legendary. Oh, Lindelof's hurt, great. But it did feel like Tyronn Lue just didn't want to be in there. I felt like he was kind of I don't know. It just didn't feel like it was a perfect fit. It didn't feel like it was a lot of kind of the right movements. I'm just kind of doing this for chemistry. What? Jesus Navas, come on, man. But kind of again going back to the Tyronn Lue thing, it just didn't seem like, it just doesn't seem like a great fit to me. I think that his health is probably my main concern as to why I think that he's not going to really work there in LA. And we have other rumors about Kawhi Leonard getting preferential treatment, which I think for a superstar player, I think that's what you get. It doesn't matter if you're LeBron James or whether you're Kawhi Leonard. I feel like all superstar players get their preferred treatment. So I don't really see that being an issue. I think the main thing for me, guys, is really going to be, ouch, that's cold, is really the Tyronn Lue kind of, is he going to be the right coach for the team? Because I do think that the Lakers have the best chance of winning the championship once again. I think many times we see that the Clippers get very disrespected, but also the Lakers get disrespected even more. I felt like, you know, right now the Lakers, sorry, I meant to say the Lakers get disrespected more because they really are the ones that won the championship. Everyone was kind of questioning them in the bubble, like, you know, were they going to be able to compete in there? You know, their shooting isn't very good. And it just kind of led to a lot of questioning by a lot of NBA media pundits. Guys like Skip Bayless, guys like give him a goal. Guys like who else? Chris Broussard and many others like Stephen A. Smith, Max Kellerman, Mason Mount. Are you kidding me? But I do believe that the Lakers have the best chance of winning the championship again next season. I felt like they did a really good job of acquiring the assets, and I think that they're not done. And we'll kind of talk about their moves in a second. But kind of going back, like I said, to Tyronn Lue, which I feel like I've kind of been avoiding talking about it. I think health to me is the number one concern for Tyronn Lue. I felt like with the way that he is health-wise, I don't know if that's the right move for the LA Clippers. The cool thing is that Chauncey Billups will be on the bench, so that's really cool to see that he always wanted to coach in the NBA or be a GM. I know that he's very involved when it comes to the NBA personnel stuff, and so I'm glad that he's kind of getting his opportunity to become that guy. What about Chelsea? We'll talk about Chelsea a little bit later. We'll talk some soccer and kind of the controversial red card, non-red card from Pickford. But kind of again going back to the NBA stuff, guys. The one thing that we need to talk about, of course, is what are the LA Clippers' best moves? Because I think that they need to trade for a superstar. I think they're in the same situation as I keep getting my butt kicked right now, trying to keep a PC out here on the channel. Is what's gonna be going on with Tyronn Lue? Because I think that the LA Clippers right now, I don't think that they're happy with Paul George. I think Steve Ballmer would rather have someone else than Paul George. So we'll see what happens there. I'll say on all sides, okay? So I think that we're going to be seeing that sort of situation kind of come about is to, are we going to see a trade for Paul George? Is Paul George going to be gone from the team? Is he going to be still there? That's kind of the biggest question mark going into the LA Clippers future. And we'll kind of get to know that a little bit more as we continue to monitor the situation. I'm playing on Legendary, Sean. So yeah, I'm like a tweener between Legendary and World Class. It's kind of annoying. It's like World Class is too easy, but Legendary is too hard. I need to figure that out. But I do believe that we can figure something out for the LA Clippers at some point. I just think that the Clippers are done being second fiddle. I know Steve Ballmer's tired of it. I know that he would rather be the number one team in LA. And I think that he can be the number one team in LA. I just think that the thing that he needs to work on, the thing that the Clippers need to really improve on is kind of their mental toughness. I felt like, Kawhi Leonard isn't that type of guy most of the time. I felt like, there's some times where I felt like Kawhi Leonard, especially in that last game for the LA Clippers against the Denver Nuggets, they could have done a better job. And it's just kind of one of those things where I wish that they would be able to do it better. Because I think that Kawhi Leonard is a really good player, but right now he's kind of acting fraudulent with the way that he acted in the Denver Nuggets series. Only scoring 2 points in the second half. That's absolutely outrageous for a superstar. I mean, can you imagine if, for example, I'm playing soccer right now, if Messi wasn't scoring a goal for like the last 10 to 15 games, like there would be riots on the street in Barcelona. So it's one of those things where I want to see Kawhi Leonard step up his game, and he needs to. But we'll see what happens. And you're right, Sean. I mean, like, the thing with Kawhi Leonard, and it's kind of the championship remorse, right? He wins a championship for Toronto, kind of gets that recognition, kind of gets that glamour. And we kind of were, I think a lot of people were quick to point out that he's, one of the top players in the league, or like the number one player, I should say. Maybe not. I mean, he's still a very good player, and, top 5, of course. But, a lot of people were kind of, making him out to be like he's better than LeBron James at this point. And I just think that LeBron James, the way that he takes care of his body, the way that he kind of picks his teammates, the way that he maneuvers situations for himself, I think that he is on a different level than any player I think I've ever seen before. I mean, we can even talk about Michael Jordan. We can talk about how, he was kind of on that level. But I think LeBron James did a really good job of kind of taking it to the next level. I felt that he did a really good job of picking his teammates, knowing what works for him, what doesn't. And, you got to also give Coach Vogel some props, as I almost got scored on again. You have to give Coach Vogel some props, man. I felt like he did a good job of coaching. Again, shout out to Half Court Hoops, watching some Lakers offense, kind of figuring out, what stuff they like to run. They like to run a lot of stuff, especially early in the season. It was kind of some horn set stuff. So I do believe that he is a good he's a good coach. And, as much as I like to give him crap and, I was really, really critical of him. He did a really good job this season. And even, from future here on out, to carry that Indiana Pacers team, which he formerly coached when he was going against LeBron, it was definitely some masterful class. I mean, the way that he was able to get Roy Hibbert to not look like a fraud was absolutely tremendous. And I do believe, like I said, that LeBron James has another trick up his sleeve, and it's kind of why I titled this video, the Lakers might be adding another Hall of Fame type of player, and that is going to be Chris Paul. I think that. Hey, what's up, Eoy? How you doing, man? Just playing a little FIFA, talking a little sports. But I do believe that the Lakers are not done adding players, and I think that Chris Paul is going to be one of those players. I think Chris Paul does a tremendous job, and I wouldn't say that he's like. I think he can do a better job than Rondo did when it comes to that. So I think that we could definitely see. We can definitely see Chris Paul do a tremendous job in LA. I think that him, LeBron James, Anthony Davis would be a tremendous lineup. I know that Chris Paul is about 34, 35 years old. I know that LeBron James is also that old as well. I think he's like 35, if I'm not mistaken. But I do believe that Chris Paul adds a lot of stability, and he also adds a lot of growth and tremendous support for the LA Lakers. I mean, let's kind of look at Chris Paul's stats really quick, and we'll kind of take a break from the game a little bit to kind of talk about Chris Paul's stats and kind of see where he's at, stat-wise, what he did last season, because I think that that's going to be a tremendous kind of gauging point. So if we look at Chris Paul's stats really quick, go to Basketball Reference, the best place I like to look at for that. Oklahoma City definitely exceeded all expectations. I think that when it comes to Chris Paul, averaging 17 points a game, averaging, I believe he had 5 rebounds a game and 6.7 assists. Obviously not his highest assist totals. And obviously his minutes are kind of his lowest minutes or close to it. I believe he had maybe one season where he was lower in minutes per game, but still shot about 50% from the field. Still a tremendously good point guard. I do believe that Chris Paul will do a very good job of manning the Lakers offense when LeBron James is out. Because I think one thing that was for certain this offseason and kind of this playoffs, especially in the bubble, is that KCP was the Lakers' third best star. I don't believe it was Kuzma. I don't believe it was anybody else. As much as the Lakers fans wanted it to be Kyle Kuzma, I thought that they could have done a better job there. And I think we're joined by my friend Cluck, if he's on.
What's up, Bernie?
All right. Cluck, you are live on the stream right now. Say hello to the fans.
Hello. How we doing, Bernie? Good to talk to you, man.
Yeah. I was kind of in the middle of a conversation about talking about Chris Paul and, a potential rumor that he might go to the LA Lakers. Cluck, I know you played basketball in high school. You kind of know the game. I like your analytics. I like the way that you talk basketball. So let me know, what do you make of that move when it comes to Chris Paul going to the Lakers?
To the Lakers. I mean, do they need Chris Paul at this moment? I don't know. If you keep Rajon Rondo, I think you're good. But at the same time, if they do want to go Chris Paul, how much are you going to have to get rid of? Because I think one of their biggest things this year that helped them win was definitely depth, right? Like you saw throughout the playoffs, anytime they needed to make an adjustment with who was in the starting 5, they could make it because they had depth. Whether it was Dwight, whether it was Caruso, right? Whatever they had to do, they had the players to do it. But if you go and get Chris Paul, what are you giving up and what are you losing, to just go get one guy? When I think at the point guard spot, you're good because let's be real, LeBron's playing point guard, right? He's going to have the ball in his hands.
Right.
So I don't know.
But I think the one thing that I kind of like about Chris Paul is that he's another superstar that you can rely on, and it's someone that's a consistent third guy. I think as much as you can throw in, I mean, you still have Caruso under contract. I believe you still have JaVale McGee under contract. Obviously, JaVale McGee didn't play very much in the playoffs in the bubble, and Dwight Howard did. So I think Dwight Howard might be gone, just due to the fact that I think he'll take the money, which I don't blame him for. I don't think I blame anybody for taking the money, but I do like the fact that Chris Paul could be another third option, a consistent third option, because I think that's kind of what the Lakers fans and maybe other fans as well were frustrated with about Kyle Kuzma. And I know that he's only in his third or fourth year, I believe, third year, I believe. But I just don't know about him necessarily as someone that could potentially grow and mature to be this like high IQ basketball player. I think where he's at right now is probably where he's going to be for the rest of his career, because he's already 25, 26, and kind of in that point where it's like I don't think he has a tremendous ceiling, but he definitely can improve. But basketball IQ is something that you learn, and I'm not sure if he's going to be able to. I know he's young, but I'm not sure about it.
Yeah, I mean, you already know what I think about Kuzma. I mean, I think he definitely didn't live up to expectations for this playoffs, but I also think, like I said, it's kind of tough getting a rhythm when you don't play that much. It's kind of hard. I think that's part of what you see, but at the same time, a lot of that's on him because he was making defensive mistakes that are simple and that you can't make. You're going to get pulled if you do. So, I think it's kind of tough, but I'm kind of with you. I think if they could get rid of him, they probably would, but at the same time, who out there is in the market for a Kyle Kuzma right now?
I think you're right. I mean, the thing that sucks is that I'm sure that the Lakers would have much preferred to keep Brandon Ingram, but I think we talked about in our group chat. Does he really fit the scheme of what the Lakers are going for? And Kuzma kind of fits that in a way, but I do believe that there will be some teams, maybe the Wizards and Bradley Beal. I think that might be an option, although I think that there's so many landing points for a guy like Bradley Beal to go to any team. That I think that the Wizards would listen to the best offer, because I think that they should just go for a total rebuild and not waste away Bradley Beal's career prime. But we'll see what happens. I mean, do you think of any free agents, or can you think of anybody that the Lakers could trade for that would help them elevate to another level?
I mean, I think if you're the Lakers, you just kind of look at what do you need. I know KCP, I think it's like $8 million, right? And then you got he's obviously going to want his money. So you think like, what are you going to lose? What are you going to need? And I just think you probably need a shooter. You need a knockdown 3-point shooter. LeBron has always had one, and I think he really needs one. You saw, right? Danny Green should have made the shot, right?
Right.
Now the death threats obviously are, but you should have made the shot. You look at the same thing, and I think that's what you see is it's just who is going to knock down the threes consistently. Right? KCP stepped up series, but if I'm the Lakers, I might try and go get somebody that I know,
I do believe that there might be a free agent, and I kind of talked about it in an earlier stream that I did earlier this week. I do believe that Joe Harris is a free agent, the guy that played for the Brooklyn Nets. Great 3-point shooter from the Chelan area.
Yeah.
I think that he might be a good fit for them.
Absolutely.
But it depends how much he wants, because I feel like I don't think he'll get like this amazing contract from any team, but I do believe he'll get a solid number. But it depends on like what his aspirations are, just like anybody in the NBA or the league. Is he about the perks about the NBA, or is he about the championship? But I love a guy like Joe Harris. He could be a good option. We got someone in the chat saying Fred VanVleet. What do you make of Fred VanVleet? Do you think he leaves Toronto?
I don't think he leaves Toronto, man. I don't know. You also got to think who's going to pay him and how much does he want, And I think Kyle Lowry's getting up there a little bit. I think maybe VanVleet thinks, he sticks around. If he stays with Toronto, him and Pascal, that might be a team going forward that can really do something. Yeah,
I mean, I'm trying to look at the kind of the best free agents. We got obviously a lot of restricted free agents. We got some player options.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't really like. Honestly, this free agency class sucks, and obviously everyone's waiting for the 2021 one, where like a bunch of players like Giannis and I believe Paul George, whatever you make of him, are going to be free agents, and they're going to be one. And I think LeBron James too on a player option. He might opt out. Obviously, will try and get the last bit of bread before he retires. There's a lot of good free agents in the next year's draft class, or free agency class, not this draft or free agency class. So I think mainly what we're going to be seeing that it's going to be a lot of role players. I think, like you said, I think the Lakers are going to have to replenish their role players tremendously if they want to keep up. But I do believe that they have enough kind of role players right now currently on contract to trade and maybe get something. But I don't know. Like I'm not confident in any of these kind of trades for the Lakers because I feel like a lot of the GMs, a lot of people are kind of LeBron haters, or they're not like a big fan of helping LeBron James win the league. And so I don't believe that teams are going to be reluctant to trade their star players or good assets to the Lakers.
Yeah, I think I have to agree with that. And I also think it's in large part just the Lakers don't have anything to trade. You know what I mean? What team out there is looking at the Lakers, obviously outside of LeBron and AD? I mean, you know what I mean? That's their whole team is LeBron and AD. So it's just about now can we, like you said, replenish, bring in players. And it'll be interesting to see because, like I said earlier, KCP's on 8 million. I think Danny Green is 15 million, and KCP obviously outshined Danny Green in the playoffs. So he's going to be standing there looking at the Lakers like, hey, it's time to pay up. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens and what they have to do going forward.
Yeah, I mean, let's see some of the trade options or the kind of the trade bait that they could have. I mean, obviously the number one is Kyle Kuzma. What kind of value do you have on Kuzma? Do you think he could be someone that could facilitate a big time trade? Like, could you package him with like a pick and get like, I don't know, like a Bradley Beal? I know I keep talking about Bradley Beal. I'm going to try and speak into existence. Or do you trade him to get Chris Paul? Like, what do you think that would be enough for the Oklahoma City Thunder to kind of activate that trade and trade away Chris Paul, who's 34, probably not going to want to be on that rebuild, and trade away Kuzma?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you look at that and you think Kyle Kuzma is worth it by himself right now. I think the potential's there, but obviously you don't know if it's actually gonna come to fruition. So I think it'll be interesting to see. And plus, you got to think about Oklahoma looking at other teams. Giannis wants to play with Chris Paul. I think that's a good fit if you can make the money work. They give him that point guard, and like we saw in this playoff series, CP3 can obviously still bring it. I think he had something to prove, and I think he looks at maybe teaming up with Giannis and looking at a championship, before he ultimately retires.
Yeah, I mean, I never really kind of considered the Giannis connection there. I'm just kind of, the only thing I'm kind of concerned about is the lack of shooting. I'm not like a big Chris Middleton fan. I think that Chris Middleton is kind of suspect when it comes to the playoffs. And so I'm not really a big fan of there, but yeah, I mean, that could definitely be an option for Chris Paul as we kind of continue monitoring the situation. I mean, another player that could be potentially on the trade market for the Lakers could be Danny Green. I know that he definitely did not live up to the expectations of what every Laker fan wanted, especially when it came to that three. And of course, we don't condone the death threats at all. It's a game of basketball. Relax, people. But what do you think of Danny Green? Do you think Danny Green could maybe bring somebody in? I know he's on $15 million a year in his last part of the deal for this next coming year. Do you think that maybe could get that off the cap and bring in someone else?
I don't know. I'm just looking, what team out there wants Danny Green for 15 million, That's kind of what I'm looking at. So maybe if the Lakers can make the money work for someone, maybe, but other than that, I just don't think anyone's out there looking at Danny Green saying, yeah, that's 15 million.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with you there. I think Danny Green is kind of one of those players that got a great contract at the time and, took advantage of the situation, good for him. kind of getting that big contract and, living his best life, especially in Toronto before he ultimately got traded. Or I think did he sign or he got traded?
Yeah, that I got him his respect. Respect. He is a back-to-back NBA champion.
One.
I think I can hear you now.
Okay. Now I just want to make sure that for people in the chat, is it when my guest or when Cluck is speaking, do you guys hear him talking double time, or do you hear him just talking one time?
Hopefully just once.
Dean. See here. I'll make sure I get this taken care of. Let's see here. Properties. Okay, one time. Cool. Perfect. All right. I just want to make sure because I saw it double up on my OBS, so I just want to make sure. But yeah, I think when it comes to Danny Green, ultimately, great player. Obviously made some. I'm gonna tell you one time. Gosh dang it. I do believe that Danny Green is one of those players that you definitely look at and see what's out there for him. I think that there might be some kind of low fodder team that could kind of use his cap value and trade it to kind of take away some of the cap space, so for next year they can sign their own free agent. I kind of see that being a viable option for them, but ultimately I just don't. I think that they should trade him away because I think 15 mil is too much for Danny Green, for a guy that he's not really a 3-and-D guy anymore. He's just more of a 3 guy. Because defensively, it's kind of he's the mismatch against any team that they go against. Him and Morris were the two players that a lot of NBA superstars went at, and obviously, that's what offenses are trying to do. They're trying to create mismatches, so you go against the weakest defender. But I do believe that they need to start looking at getting rid of Danny Green, not only for contract-wise, but I think that him as kind of this elite 3-and-D player, I think is ultimately over. And then,
yeah, I think so. I think until he proves otherwise.
Yeah, so I mean, we'll see what the GM has to say about it. But the next player that we can also look at as someone that they could potentially trade is Alex Carusco. Caruso, sorry. A tremendous hustle player. Love his hustle, love his respect. Kind of got mad at him because I felt like that his flopping led to Anthony Davis almost hurting himself. But nevertheless, can't take anything away from the guy, except God's taken away that hairline. But nevertheless, I do believe that Alex Caruso might have some good value. What do you make of Caruso? Do you think Caruso could be a good trade asset?
Yeah, I think so. I think like you just said, you look at Caruso and he does all the things that don't show up on the stat sheets. And I think every team is looking for that. I think playing with LeBron, he probably just picks up so much because obviously LeBron is such a great teacher of the game as well. And I think for Caruso going forward, the next thing he needs to look at is how do I up my game offensively? I think, he's got to start adding some moves. I think the 3 has got to be his next thing he really, really focuses on, because if you can throw everything he's doing right now, plus, spot him up in the corner and let him knock down threes, every team is going to look for him.
Yeah, exactly. I think Caruso, like you said, has tremendous upside. From Texas A&M, definitely a really good player. I think that if he can definitely add that 3 ball, he will definitely, like a consistent 3 ball, that is, he would definitely be more lethal.
Oh, yeah.
But other than that, I think that's really all they had. See, every team keeps a guy like Carusco. Yeah, Eoy, I do believe that you're right. I mean, I wish that a lot of teams kind of had their Caruso, because I feel like if the Clippers had their Caruso, they would have definitely not have been fraudulent and lost against the Denver Nuggets. But that guy was supposed to be Patrick Beverley, but I think because he got the contract, because he's finally on the team that's kind of predicted to, by many people to be the number 1 team in the NBA, it was kind of like everybody was excited about that. Um, but I think other than that, I think that's really all the trade assets and value that I think the Lakers have. I mean, can you think of anybody else on the Lakers that are under contract that would be like a good value to trade?
No, I think at that point, it's mostly going to be the Lakers out there just trying to figure out who they can bring in. I think they're going to keep what they can. I would like to see him keep Rondo personally. I think he fits. Everyone saw what he can do in the playoffs. I mean, you put him up there with LeBron, the two of them together, that IQ for basketball is just, not too many teams are going to be able to go out there and match up with it. So I think you keep Rondo, and then you just try to replenish what you can. And like you said, if you can get rid of Danny Green somehow, do it. But I don't know if too many teams are going to be looking for him. If you can go out and get rid of Kuzma, maybe. What can you get for him though? So it'll be interesting to see. And I also think, I don't think the jury's in yet on Kyle Kuzma. I think he just needs a little more playing time, get a little more rhythm going, and I think he could produce.
Do you feel like the city of LA is kind of maybe not clouding his judgment, or obviously he's a young guy. I mean, we all are, so we kind of like the shiny, flashy things. But do you think like maybe if he went to like a different city, let's say they traded him to Oklahoma City for Chris Paul, along with many other assets, because they're going to need a ton of money to kind of keep up with the Lakers, or to keep up with Chris Paul's kind of contract, which is 33 mil. Do you think maybe like do you think like if he was on a different team, could you see his game grow even higher, or do you think that it doesn't matter, what team he's on, he can grow?
I think it's tough. Obviously LA's got a lot of bright lights, but I think it kind of comes down to something James Harden's talked about before, where he talks about just not everyone loves the game. You know what I mean? Not everyone is in the NBA just like absolutely loves the game. I think some people are in it for kind of the other things, and that's kind of what they see. And I'm not saying that's Kuzma, but I think yeah, LA is probably a fun city to live in when you're a young NBA player, especially on the Lakers. You just won a championship. But in terms of his progress, I'd like to see him next to LeBron. I just think he could learn from him, and I think going forward he could produce. Obviously LeBron every day, every practice is going to be trying to drill into him. This is what I need from you. This is what you got to do. And I think you've seen that, throughout LeBron's career, he's gotten guys to buy in. But then again, it's kind of tough because I think you see a lot of times LeBron had to get rid of younger guys and bring in kind of older vets, that had already made their money and now we're a little more willing to, okay, this is my role. This is what I'm going to do. I'm here for the championship. So, who knows? But I'd like to see him stay. I think he learns from LeBron, and I think he can produce.
Yeah, I just think with Kuzma, my only concern is the bright lights of LA. I think that I do believe that a better setting for him would be a place where like he can not be as distracted. I felt like when he went to Utah and I was there, I felt like that was probably the perfect place for him to kind of settle in, because it was one of those kind of low key states where like you can you're kind of focused on one thing. And one thing I remember from Kyle Kuzma in college tremendously was that while many of the other guys were kind of playing pickup basketball, as I give up a goal, as many guys were playing basketball at the open gyms that all the students play at. He was in there, but he was like working on his game. Like he was working on drills. He was doing other things. You could call that kind of boring and kind of like, hey, come on, man, let's play some pickup. But he was one of those guys that was just like, nah, I'm gonna work on my game. I'm gonna work on my craft. And I feel like if he was in that type of environment again, I feel like he would tremendously he would love it. And I think that, not love it, but I think he would love it more for his growth and development than being in LA where he's distracted. I feel like he's dating every single actress and celebrity that he can find, and nothing wrong with that. Obviously, do you? But I do believe that stuff distracts him. I mean, we kind of see what happened with Ben Simmons when it comes to like Kylie Jenner. Jenner seems to always be another NBA player's business. And we kind of saw like what happened. Ben Simmons still can't shoot a three consistently. It's been years.
I was gonna say Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons' big issue is he cannot score a basket from outside of 4 feet.
Yeah, and so I'm hoping that we can kind of get something from him. But that'll probably be a different topic for a different day. But I kind of talked about it earlier on the stream. What did you make of the Tyronn Lue hire for the LA Clippers? Do you think it's something that Tyronn Lue is going to do a really good job at, or do you have questions about Tyronn Lue as the head coach of the LA Clippers?
I like it personally. I think it's the best pick they could have done. You look at it, he's won a championship, his resume is there, he's got the players' respect. I think being there as the head assistant, I think you see, he got to kind of sit back in a little bit of an observer role and kind of see how that team played out this year. And so I think going into next year, he's kind of got an idea, right? He doesn't have to come in. If they brought in somebody from the outside, they'd be coming in, kind of completely blind, trying to get a sense of everything. But because Ty Lue was there, I think he knows, what went wrong maybe. And so I think he's got a better handle on that situation. Plus, I think too, he can look at Kawhi and kind of sit him down and tell him, hey, this is what I'm going to need from you, and this is what this team is going to need from you. He did it in Cleveland with LeBron. And so I think Ty Lue was definitely the right choice.
Do you not have any concern for like health wise? Because remember the last time that Ty Lue was the head coach for an organization, he kind of had some heart problems. He kind of felt the stress of, dealing with a team with LeBron James, and I felt like an even bigger kind of, maybe not a bigger drama, but maybe a bigger storyline will be, the LA Clippers. Can they overcome and get to the Western Conference Finals and win a championship?
Yeah, I don't know. I think he's, like I said, he's been there, so I think he's probably been had enough time maybe to hopefully get a handle on whatever he needs to get a handle on. But I think he's the right guy. I think they're going to be good. I think he's going to kind of get them on the same page. And I'm excited for next season. There's going to be a lot of parity. There's a lot of teams out there with, two dudes that can put on a show. So it'll be fun to watch.
For sure. And that's kind of the biggest question for me is just kind of, can the Clippers finally, do their thing, and can they finally get to the promised land is what, Steve Ballmer, the owner for the team, is very impatient. I don't think he wants to kind of wait for this team to improve, gradually over time. He traded away everything to get Paul George. And Paul George hasn't delivered. I mean, what's your take on Paul George? Do you think he's a good player? Do you think he's kind of What do you make of Paul George?
I think there's levels, and I think he went to the Clippers. He saw the bright lights. He saw his name right there with Kawhi, and I think he got a little bit ahead of himself. You know what I mean? He hasn't won a championship. He has not made it to the finals. He is not at the same level as Kawhi. I think he's a good basketball player, but I think, going into next year, he might want to take a look and say, all right, I need to prove myself, before I start celebrating. I think that goes for the entire Clippers team. I think they kind of came into this year, and a lot of people had picked them as the team to beat. And I think they kind of had that crown on their heads. And I think as it kind of wore on, especially in the playoffs, I think they realized, how heavy the crown is. And end of the season, we see what happens. The crown is where it's been for a long time. LeBron James.
King, that's right. And I think that's really it for like kind of the Laker news and kind of the LA news, because that's kind of like the biggest talking point. But we had someone in the chat kind of wanting to talk about the Grizzlies. What's your take on this Grizzlies team? I know they have I believe they have one of your guys from Gonzaga, Brandon Clark, if I'm not mistaken. And two.
We always support the Zags.
You always support the Zags. What do you make of this Grizzlies team? He's an anxious fan. He wants to know what you make of his team, how they can improve, or what do you think is the next step for them to get to a championship?
I think it's experience. I think that's really what it is. I'm excited. I love watching them play. They're a young team. They're exciting. Obviously you got Ja Morant, you got Brandon Clark. They've got these young pieces. And so for me, I think it's just experience. Wherever you look across this league, no matter who the player is, Michael Jordan, right? Doesn't matter. The beginnings of their careers, they don't usually win. And so I think that's what you're going to see. They're going to get that experience. They're going to get those reps. They're going to see what it takes. And I think that's really what's standing between them. I think they're kind of similar to the Nuggets in that sense, right? The Nuggets kind of have been chugging along, getting better, getting more experience, and then we saw it kind of culminate this year, and I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think for me, when it comes to a team like the Grizzlies, I think you're right. Experience is definitely king. I mean, it's kind of the only sport where I feel like you have to be older. Maybe other sports as well, but I feel like the older you are, or the older your team is, the more your team is going to perform better in the playoffs and do stuff like that. Because I think that they just have that kind of, they've been around the block before. They understand how everything works. They're not going to be kind of rushing and chucking up shots. They're going to take smart shots. And I just think that right now the Grizzlies are kind of in that young professional stage where they're going to grow and see if they can. And I think that they kind of have that kind of Warriors vibe to them. Not saying that, they're going to have all this like 3-point crazy shooting, but I just think that like growth and development. I think that's kind of the way that the Grizzlies teams and many teams like the Grizzlies are going to have to do it. The smaller markets are going to have to kind of grow their teams and kind of organically bring their teams together. They're not the LAs, they're not the Miamis, they're not like some crazy super team. They're kind of one of those low key teams that could potentially win a championship here or there if they draft the right players and kind of grow them organically. I mean, we saw it with the Warriors. The Golden State Warriors were the exact same thing, and we saw what happened with them, and they became close to, I would say, to a dynasty that we can remember. Besides, well, I guess LeBron James is in Miami, but it's kind of the same thing for me and the Warriors. I feel like they could definitely do it, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm all in on the Warriors next season. By the way,
you're all in. All right, let's talk about
it.
Let's talk about it.
I think personally, Clay gets hurt, Steph gets hurt. They've been sitting out now. They've been resting, and they have just been watching the entire NBA forget about the Warriors, and specifically forget about Steph and Clay, the best backcourt the NBA has ever seen in terms of shooting. And I think they're going to come back. They got Draymond. They got a top pick. So either they're going to bring in a rookie that they think fits their needs, or they're going to package it and go get a superstar. And I think Steph and Clay are going to come out just absolutely on fire. They've been sitting. They've been resting. They've been getting back to health. And they're going to come out both men on a mission to win a championship and let the NBA know that they're still here.
I mean, I do agree. I think that, I do believe that they did get a little disrespected. Obviously, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind, where, even Kevin Durant to some extent kind of felt that way because of his Achilles injury. So I think that they have a potential chance. I think the Warriors have Wiggins.
Have Wiggins
they
right
do
now.
Have Wiggins. Holy crap, I totally spaced on that. I'm not a big fan of Wiggins. I've always hated Wiggins ever since he came out of the draft. I'm not a huge fan of him, but I could potentially see maybe Wiggins and that first round pick being traded off for something. Maybe they might make a trade, and I think that they should, because I think that size is what they need. As much as we like to kind of make that the NBA is kind of going small ball, I still think that you need a big that can stretch the floor, a big that can go in there and get you rebounds. I think you still need that in the NBA. So we'll see what happens. Like, when we look at the Warriors, do you feel like they need a trade, or do you feel like they'll be good without making a trade?
I think it depends. I think it depends what they want to do with that draft pick. The type of player they want to bring in. Personally, I think they need an athletic wing. I think they bring somebody in that's got some talent. I'd love to see, just an athletic wing that can kind of go out, run the floor with them, right? Draw some people in, and then you're just either throwing lobs to him or you're kicking it out, somebody shoot a three. I think that's what they need to go and do. And whether they do it, in the draft or they do it with the trade, I think that's what they'll end up doing. Steve Kerr knows what he wants. And I think the Warriors are going to go out and just I'm excited. I think they're going to tear it up.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with you there. I do believe that the Golden State Warriors are going to be a team that's obviously going to take the playoffs. I mean, if we kind of look at all the teams in the Western Conference, I mean, you know, do you think that they take the place of, let's say, like a team like, do they take kind of like a Utah Jazz? Do they take the Portland Trailblazers spot? Like, where do you see the Warriors finishing in the conference or in the conference? Yeah, the conference.
I think I think they got to be in the top. They're Champions League top four. I think they're up there for sure. Um, I think it'll just kind of depend how quickly they get their rhythm back. How quickly they build, that in-game chemistry. And I know a lot of people obviously are talking about, Giannis to the Warriors, but I don't think that happens. I think Giannis stays in Milwaukee. I don't think he's that type of player. I think he wants to stay, much like Dame Lillard. I think he wants to stay. So I think they go out. I think they get an athletic wing, and I think they're definitely top four. And then in the playoffs, I mean, who wants to face the Warriors in the playoffs? Because, Steph and Clay are going to have games where, they're just going to shoot you out the gym. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it'll definitely be a very fun and interesting situation as we kind of continue to monitor what the Warriors do. Obviously, they have a great pick in the draft. We'll see what they do with it. Will they get a guy like James Wiseman? Will they trade that pick? That's going to be fun to watch and see what they can do there. Kind of create some voodoo magic, and maybe they end up with a big. Maybe Karl Anthony Towns. I know that they just got Wiggins from the. Look, I can talk the Timberwolves, but maybe that might be a landing option. We see guys like Joel Embiid. Could he be on the Warriors? Could you see that happening? There's a lot of bigs out there that can be added to this team. It's just going to be a matter of what the Warriors are willing to give up.
Yeah, I think, if they go with the draft, I think Wiseman from Memphis is, a great fit. Long, athletic, big. He can run the floor. He's talented. He's got the skill to do it. Embiid, maybe because he can step out and shoot a three if you run a pick and roll. But I don't know if he runs the floor enough for them. I think he might just clog it up a little bit. I don't know if that's their offense. Unless Kerr tries to bring in a little more of the triangle that he picked up in Chicago, maybe. But even then, I just don't think Embiid's the best fit for them.
Yeah, I mean, obviously,
Karl Anthony Towns, I do like.
Yeah, I just think the problem with Karl Anthony Towns, and the only reason why I brought him up is that I think defensively he's just a liability. And I think that the Warriors are not. They definitely need someone who's more of a protector of the rim, a more defensive player. I mean, obviously Clay is a great defensive player, but Steph Curry. Not saying that he's like the worst liable defender out there in the world, but I do believe that there could be better ones out there. I mean, I think he could be a better defender, but I think that a lot of teams like to go to the mismatch because obviously he's the shorter guy, the smaller guy, and the weaker guy, and they'll take advantage of that sort of situation. But yeah, I mean, I think Karl Anthony Towns offensively definitely is a great player for the Warriors to kind of do something, but we'll see what happens when they decide to draft. I mean, right now the NBA mock drafts from the ESPN is having them take Anthony Edwards, a kind of already guard as type of player, almost like a Dwayne Wade in the sense, almost honestly like Andrew Wiggins, to be honest with you, like a slashing guard that can attack the hoop, not really that good of a shooter. So he'll need to do a better job and work on his shooting, and we'll see if that's kind of the pick that they decide to go in.
Yeah, and to your point about Karl Anthony Towns, I think if he were to go to the Warriors, I think he's in a spot there where you can kind of tell him, hey, you don't have to worry about as much on the Warriors in terms of scoring, right? You can kind of take a step back, and I think that might be something that if he did step into that role, he could really focus on his defense and on his rebounding, on being, a shot blocker at the rim. So I think that wouldn't be a bad fit. I think if he went there, he could kind of take that a little step back, worrying about offensively, and I think that might let him, focus up on the defensive end.
Yeah, for sure. What do you make of Killian Tilly? We had a fan in the chat from Dean. He was wondering what you thought of Killian Tilly as a player.
He's got great hands, first and foremost. I mean, he's got great hands. But I think his whole issue is just health. That's really all it is. I think he easily gets a 10-year NBA career if he stays healthy. And I think that's the bottom line. It's just, do his ankles stay up, and do they stay healthy? But like I said, I'm always going to root for the Zags. I think he's fantastic. I think he's been fantastic for the Zags. I'd love to see him play.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think Killian Tilly, the problem with him was health, and it always has been. I think even at Gonzaga, if I'm not mistaken. You guys have more firsthand experience than I do since you went to the school. But I do believe that he could be a really good player in this league. I think he could be a solid role player. It's just a matter of can he stay healthy, and we'll see what happens with him.
Yeah, I think he does a lot of things really well. He's kind of got that prototypical, Euro build. He's long, he's tall, but he's got a little bit of the handle. He can shoot. He's probably gonna have to get stronger, maybe a little bit bigger, put on some weight, drink some more muscle milk or something like that. But he's got the touch. He can shoot it. Every team wants a 6'8", 6'9", 6'10" guy that can shoot it. So, I think if he stays healthy, he definitely has a long-term career ahead of him.
Do you believe that he is a better Kelly Olynyk?
Oh, I'm a big fan of Kelly Olynyk. How can you not be in terms of basketball? He's a good player. He really is. Doesn't get a bunch of tick, obviously, for the Miami Heat. But I think they're different players. I think Kelly at Gonzaga was much more back to the basket, throw his body around, Like I said, Tilly not as big, not as thick as Kelly Olynyk, so he definitely doesn't do that as much. But so different players, but I think both good NBA players.
Is that thick with the 2C or 3C?
Oof, Kelly Olynyk?
Yeah, what is he? 2, 3?
I'd say 2 C's.
2 C's.
Hey man, he took his year off at GU and put on the weight, came back and absolutely balled out.
Exactly. I think one thing that gets kind of missed out because we've kind of been away from the playoffs for so long is we have someone else joining us here on the charge after he heard the 2 C's from Kelly Olynyk calling him thick.
He's dummy thick.
All right, let's move on to the next topic. This one is going to be a very interesting one. I think this one to me kind of says all that needs to be said about the Houston Rockets, of course, sort of direction that they went in when they decided to go James Harden and go kind of this analytical route with Daryl Morey. But now it's official that Daryl Morey is officially stepping down as the Rockets GM. We'll go to our boy Cluck first and kind of talk about that, and then we'll go to you, Sean, about your opinion on Daryl Morey. Cluck, what do you make of the Daryl Morey firing or maybe self-appointing retirement?
Yeah, I think the truth is probably somewhere in the middle, more or less. Maybe he knew that it wasn't looking good, so he kind of wanted to step away. I know I've also heard that his kids are taking a gap year, so if he does take a year off, he gets to hang with his family, which is obviously great. But I think overall they just kind of reached the end. They reached the end of this experiment. They won a ton of games. They obviously didn't get to the heights they wanted to reach, but I think they definitely, changed the game of basketball in terms of the analytics. You look at the spacing in terms of, the types of teams we see put out on the floor now have absolutely changed, just like the Suns with Steve Nash. You look at those teams in the way, which just kind of goes to speak, that Mike D'Antoni obviously changed the way the NBA game is played, but at the same time, he hasn't won it yet. And so you think, well, they've changed it, but can you win relying solely on that? And I think the Rockets kind of decided no, and they're going to try to change something up.
All right, Sean, what do you have to make about what Cluck said about Daryl Morey? Are you in agreement with him?
I mean, I don't know a ton about him, but at the same time, to me, it felt like the Rockets never really had a strategy and not a winning one. Yeah, they had some great players, obviously, with Westbrook and Harden, but it felt like those are just two players who almost stat pad, and it's a lot of ISO ball, and so I think that just like that's just not a way to win in the NBA. Like at least not win any championships. You can make the playoffs, but I mean, look at the Lakers, and the Lakers aren't running ISO ball. Like all the good teams aren't running it. I mean, the Heat don't. To me, it just seemed like he threw together, players that were super talented, but not ones that would work together well. Like, you know, did they had Chris Paul for a short stint, didn't they?
Yeah, they did for like the first couple years, I think, since when Daryl Morey
Yeah,
first
and
arrived.
I think Chris Paul was right on getting out of there and disagreeing with how they run the offense. Um, he's a team player. I think he's a piece who can help win championships. But I don't see Harden or Westbrook being championship pieces at all. I feel like they're just kind of there for themselves, and they're confrontational with their teammates, but not in a good way. Like LeBron could be, or like Jimmy Butler could be, or Michael Jordan was. Like I think that they're both just kind of selfish players, in my opinion. And I think that uh, Daryl Morey didn't really put together a team that was going to win. Just like maybe one that would win on paper, but not one that would actually execute.
Yeah, I think the frustrating thing about what was going on with the team is that I believe that the best chance that they had was Game 7 against the Golden State Warriors. I believe it was either what year would that have been? That would have been, was that the year
when CP3 was out?
Yeah, when CP3 was out, or the year before that, when they shot 27 threes in a row and missed every single one. That to me was kind of the biggest exclamation point as to the Daryl Morey era, as to where analytics can get you and where you need to also look at other metrics as well. I know that as someone who's a basketball coach, as someone that likes to look at that stuff, as someone that likes to look at your points per game, your assist to turnover ratio, every other metric, but there's stuff that can't be measured. And I felt like decision making was one of those things that couldn't be measured. I know D'Antoni and those Steve Nash offenses back in the day when they were in Phoenix, I felt that it was kind of rearing back its ugly head as to why those teams weren't successful. It's because they didn't know how to control the game and control the clock when it came down to a nail biting situation. Or it kind of shows the kind of maturity level of a guy like James Harden or many other of those players that were on the team with Chris Paul. And I wish Chris Paul would have done a better job in that aspect. But I just think the ultimate chance to win the championship was that season where they missed 27 threes in a row in that Game 7. That would have brought them to the NBA Finals. But ultimately, they fell short, and now we're here looking at the Daryl Morey era as one that we can kind of remember the Steve Nash, Mike D'Antoni era in, where it's like it was an amazing game of basketball to watch. Maybe not aesthetically pleasing, but stat-wise and the way that Harden would ISO, it was cool. But at the same time, it's just one of those things that a lot of us remember as kind of a footnote rather than remember this Houston Rockets team.
Yeah, I think too. I think you can kind of look at this year with the Rockets as, Daryl Morey's kind of, it was his Hail Mary. He said, all right, I'm gonna bring in Westbrook. I'm gonna do something big, and I'm gonna take a chance and see if I can strike gold with it. Obviously, we know it didn't work out. Turned out to be, some fake diamonds or something. But I think that's what it was. I think he took one last shot at it. He's stepping away for a little while. I'm interested to see what happens if he decides to come back.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the other interesting situation. Does he get does he want another shot? I mean, obviously I think he'll get jobs, and I think there will be situations for him to kind of get another job. But like you said, I think that it's probably a good thing that he's going to step down, kind of refocus, recoup, maybe learn some new strategies. And we'll see if something crazy happens where offensively he just comes up with something crazy.
Yeah, and shout out Steve Nash, by the way. Head coach of the Nets. I'm excited.
Yeah, but apparently KD and Kyrie say he's not their coach. So
I think you got to take it with a grain of salt.
I think Kyrie is just cancerous to any team he's on. But going on KD's podcast and saying that, oh, we don't really look at him as a head coach. It's more, a collaborated effort. It's like, why are you going to undermine, first off, a Hall of Fame basketball player, but also, someone who's stepping in as your head coach, and you're just like essentially laying down the law and starting drama more than it needs to be. I mean,
I
I
mean,
just don't like Kyrie, but
I get that perspective, but I also think, there's no way that they brought in Steve Nash, who obviously hasn't coached before as a head coach. There's no way they bring him in without. Obviously, we know about his relationship with KD. He used to work with him with the Warriors. Even before that, he used to work him out in the summer. And so I think, we know that they're good. But they definitely asked KD and Kyrie, what do you think? And I think if they both, pass on Steve Nash, they don't bring him in. And so the fact that they both kind of probably vouched for him and said, yeah, we want to bring him in. We like this guy. We have a relationship with him, whatever it may be. So like, yes, did Kyrie say that? Was it a dumb thing to say? Probably, but I don't think he has any issue with Steve Nash as his head coach because otherwise I don't think they brought Steve Nash in.
see, here's the thing. I don't think either of those players, KD or Kyrie, are good enough to be, deciding who the coach is going to be. They're not LeBron James. Like, LeBron is someone who's a leader. I don't consider KD or Kyrie leaders at all. I mean, they're both amazing players. KD may be like, a top 5 player of the past, 100 years. Like, he's that good, but he's not a leader, in my opinion. And
I will, I will die on any hill for Kevin Durant.
I get it. Sonic, former Sonic. I know, and he's an all-time great. But at the same time, I don't think he's a leader, and I don't think he's someone who should be deciding who the coach is going to be. I think he's someone who still needs to have a coach that works into a system. I think LeBron can make anything work around him because that's how good of a leader is and how good of a player he is. But I don't think KD has that.
I don't know. I think I heard it. I think it was Stephen A. that said it, but he was talking about KD and LeBron, and he was comparing obviously career wise, resume wise. There's no comparison between LeBron and KD. But if you just look at if someone asked you right now, who do you want on your team, LeBron or KD, and you're gonna go run a game of 5-on-5 pickup, you trying to tell me everyone picks LeBron?
If we're
Absolutely
playing
not.
pickup, I might pick KD, but
Absolutely not. Exactly. That's what I'm
to
saying.
win, I'm going to pick LeBron.
I don't know. I mean, KD went. Obviously, he went to the Warriors and won it with the Warriors. But I think KD comes out. I think KD is on par with LeBron in terms of talent. I think he's one of the greatest offensive players of all time.
I think he might even have more talent than LeBron, but to me, he's just not a leader.
My question with KD is, I think he's a leader as well. I think you go see him in the playoffs with the Warriors.
I think he's petty.
I mean, to be fair, LeBron James is also petty as well. I mean, we kind of saw the Instagram post back in the day with Kevin Love. If we remember that situation, Kevin Love, are you in? Are you out? I mean, I think at some point, all these players have that sort of ego to them. I think all of them want to be the best. They all want to be recognized and notarized by not only their peers, but also the fans as well. But I think what separates me for LeBron James being the GOAT and someone that I would probably honestly take him in a game of pickup or building my team around is because I know that offensively, defensively, coaching wise, I know that I'm going to get a player that will put people in the right positions to get ready. I think right now it's a almost kind of a prove it season with the Brooklyn Nets these last couple of years, because we saw what happened when Kevin Durant has an ultimate roster with, potentially two Hall of Famers on his team, maybe 3 if you want to count Draymond. Depending, I mean, he might get in just because it's the NBA Hall of Fame. But I want to see what Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving will be like together, because the cool thing is now we can compare Kyrie Irving and LeBron James to Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. So we'll see what happens when they as we see this Brooklyn Nets era of Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving going forward.
I don't know if this year's make or break for me though for them. I think they get not a pass, obviously, but I think you just don't know where KD comes in at. You don't know what his game looks like right away, and so I don't know. I don't think if they get off to a slow start, I don't think the alarm bells should be ringing just yet. But
they're both kind of, especially Kyrie, just like cancerous player to a team. If they get off to a slow start, I think they're going to start eating each other alive. And I think obviously they're going to turn on Steve Nash if they even let him have any authority as is, but I feel like they're going to turn on each other really quick. I mean, to me, it's almost like a Westbrook and Harden pairing. Like, yeah, maybe they have enough. They definitely have enough talent to win the least, but I mean, that's a weak conference as of now. So, um, I guess they're probably just banking on that. But I don't think they have. I mean, I guess we haven't seen them play together, but to me, I don't think they'd be good enough to win the finals unless somehow the Lakers lose.
I think they want to play together, and I think that's what it comes down to. They decided they wanted to play together, so obviously they have a relationship. And I think that's what will keep them together. I don't think they'll, eat each other alive if they get off to a slow start. I think more than anything, the Nets obviously would get rid of Kyrie, um, and keep KD. We obviously know, they wanted KD, and he brought Kyrie in. It was not the other way around. So I think if anything, Kyrie would just be booted, and they'd try to do something with KD. But I think they'll figure it out. I think they'll be good. Like I said, I'm excited to see a lot of teams got two dudes that can really go out there, and it'll be a fun season to watch. Assuming we have a season to watch.
Yeah, because obviously they're going to be going through the CBA agreements, kind of figuring out, do we need to change the CBA? What do we need to do about it? But I think for me, with the Brooklyn Nets is going to be, I think they need to trade a lot of those assets that they have on their team for a star player. I know that's kind
Joe
of
Harris to the Lakers.
I mean, Joe Harris is going to be a free agent, so he's kind of off the books, in my opinion. But, you have guys like Spencer Dinwiddie, a very good, solid point guard. You have Chris Chiozza, who I don't think is on a contract, but I really like his game. You have guys like Caris LeVert, Tyler Johnson. I mean, you have so many of these. Torian Prince, another one. Gary Temple. I mean, a lot of these sort of kind of role players that, could be used as a trade assets to, get a star player. I mean, whether... maybe they try and go get Victor Oladipo. Maybe they try and go get, keep bringing him up because he's, one of those guys, Bradley Beal. And that'll kind of be the biggest telling point, is going to be, well, obviously he doesn't have a say in it, so maybe not. But we'll see what happens. I think that the Brooklyn Nets, Cluck, to your point, I think that tremendously on paper, they look like a solid team. They look like a team that you could do something with. They look like a team that that is going to be scary in the postseason. It's going to be scary in the regular season. But I do believe that they need that time, like you said, to kind of grow and mature together. But the problem is that we're on this sort of expectation of superstar athletes and superstar players that they have to, perform instantly right when they get on the team. And so we'll see what happens with Kevin Durant and the Golden State Warriors. Or sorry, the Brooklyn Nets.
And let's not forget they are in the East.
True.
And obviously the imbalance between the East and the West is not as bad as it used to be, but I think it's still definitely there. And I think that'll help. They don't have to go through the Lakers. They don't have to go through the Warriors when they come back. They don't have to go through the Nuggets, right?
Just wait till Giannis joins them.
Giannis is staying.
I don't know. Well, Bernie, what do you think Giannis is gonna do? Let's talk about Giannis.
Let's talk some Giannis, the Greek freak. Shout out to his brother, by the way, for winning a championship. The first Antetokounmpo brother to win a championship. And
shout out to Giannis. I saw way too many people acting like Giannis was going to be pissed off that his brother won a championship before him. Shout out to Giannis for being a good brother and showing up and showing love.
Shout out to the Antetokounmpo brothers for making on Madden.
Facts. But let's kind of talk about Giannis a little bit, like you said, Sean. So with Giannis, I think that just like many superstars, I believe that depending on what happens next season, if Giannis can attract the right superstars to Milwaukee, then I think he stays. And I think that he will enjoy his time. He'll love the team. But I think to your point, Sean, I do believe that he might be tempted by these other teams. I kind of talked about it numerous amount of times during this live streaming. I do see him maybe going to Miami. I understand that might be blasphemous because it's almost kind of the same Kevin Durant route. But I think I like him there. I like him on the Miami Heat. Like especially if they want to run that 2-3 zone, he'll be a tremendous value in the 2-3 zone. Like I think that the way that they run it, the way that they defensively they can use another. He's not the greatest shooter, but he's definitely a lot better than Bam Adebayo 3-point shooting wise. So I can potentially see him as a great fit in Miami. But like you said, I think the Warriors might be a great fit for him. But I also think the Boston Celtics might be a great fit. But that's just wishful thinking as a Boston Celtics fan. But I do believe that he
Also the Grizzlies.
Oh, I have a question for you as a Boston Celtics fan that we can get into after this.
All right, we'll save that question for afterwards. But Cluck, we kind of talked about it already. You think that he's just going to stay in in Milwaukee?
I think he's going to stay. I think he's already made that clear. He told everyone he wants to stay. Whether or not he can bring in a big superstar that wants to come live in Milwaukee, I don't know. That might be kind of tough, like we talked about. There's some other cities out there that are a little more enticing for superstars. But I think Giannis is at a point where if he can bring in, because of the type of player he is, if he can bring in a point guard, maybe, hopefully, a shooter, maybe Chris Middleton just steps up, and plays at that high level that we've seen him play at. And I think the Bucks will be okay. I think they'll be good going forward. But I definitely think he needs another superstar. You look at every team that wins a championship, it's never one guy by himself, right? LeBron didn't do it in Cleveland. Did it when he got in Miami. When he came back to Cleveland, he had Kyrie. So yeah, I think he stays, and I want him to stay.
Dean, you have anything to say?
I mean, I think it's also, I could see him staying just because I think we also have to remember that he's only 25 years old. He doesn't need to go ring chasing at this moment, so.
Oh my goodness, control your dog over there.
Yep, got the puppy. Oh, that's Dory, actually. It's not the puppy.
Baby Yoshi. But were you gonna continue your point, or did you have anything?
No. He just doesn't need to go ring chasing at this point. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about. He doesn't really need to go anywhere. Yeah, I doubt any talent, like big talent, is gonna want to come to Milwaukee. And he doesn't seem like someone who's made friends with a bunch of superstars. So, you look at KD and Kyrie and LeBron and players like that, and they have relationships with all these really good players and can get them to come to the teams with them. But Giannis is kind of a loner, honestly, when it comes to competing against other superstars.
Well, I think part of that too goes to I think you look at a lot of the relationships, especially Kyrie and KD, for example, that's a relationship they forged playing Team USA. Obviously the AAU circuit, everyone starts to meet each other now, but I think they really forged those relationships playing together for the national team. All the camps they go through and stuff like that. So I think part of it is just Giannis obviously coming up is not been a part of that, and so I think that's kind of more of a reason too that you see that is there's just not that exposure where okay, now we're teammates, now we're working together, now we're building together. But I'm with you, and I like it personally. I like that Giannis works out by himself, trains by himself. I kind of like that that competitiveness. But I think obviously LeBron has shown you can win it a variety of ways.
I also think another team that I could potentially see Giannis on, and this one, I would actually love for this to happen, just because I think it'd be a cool concept. I think it'd be.
Say Memphis.
No, you wish it was Memphis. I do believe
the
that
Seattle SuperSonics.
No, because they won't be here yet. Maybe
Jeff Bezos buys us a team.
Jeff Glizos will not buy us a team yet. He will maybe if the Kraken were able to.
What about the Starbucks guy?
Oh, forget that guy.
He shall not be named.
He that shall not be named. But actually, I think a better team might be the Dallas Mavericks. And I think the Dallas Mavericks are a team that are rumored to line up for him. They'll have the cap space for him once they get rid of some dead weight. I think he would be a good fit there. I think that you have one superstar and one star player in Kristaps Porzingis and Luka Doncic, and I think if you were to add Giannis to that team, it'd be like the international squad, and you could have a cool rivalry if LeBron James is, if he'll still be at the highest level, depending on what team he goes to, because obviously we're gonna have to wait till next year for that to happen. But I think that might be another team too. I like the fact that, Giannis doesn't always have to be the ball handler. He doesn't always have the ball in his hands. He can kind of be, some relief pressure, and he can get in nice duck-in situations, or coaches can drop plays for him where he can get low post touches and even just kind of mid-range shots. So I think the Dallas Mavericks might be another team that could be potentially looking to get Giannis.
Yeah,
What about the Nuggets? I feel like, the Nuggets they are the second lowest, spending team as it comes to salary cap. And they were close to making a finals. I feel like Giannis, Jokic, Murray.
I don't think that works.
You don't think that works? Why don't you think that works?
I don't think Jokic and Giannis pair up very nicely together.
I feel like, Giannis is like, defensive player of the year, right?
Yeah, but then if you bring in Giannis, then you have Giannis and Jokic both on the floor together. I just don't think there's enough space. Obviously, Jokic is a tremendous.
Is that because Jokic is fat? Did you not realize he got skinny?
No, he's fantastic. I think he's one of the best centers in the NBA, but I just don't think him and Giannis fit on a basketball court together in terms of playing.
Yeah, I think when it comes to Giannis and the Nuggets, I think I agree with you, Cluck. It's the spacing. I think it'll just be way off. It'll be kind of what the situation you have right now in 76ers land with Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. Ben Simmons wants that lane to attack and create space, and he can't shoot further away than 3 feet. So I think that you're going to have the same type of situation there, more so with the playmaking side of things. I think both Giannis and Jokic kind of like to, kind of have that kind of dribble handoff, live action dribble handoff going for them. And I think that with both of them, wanting to attack the paint, and with Giannis not really being a consistent shooter, I don't see him being a better fit. I think the better fit for the Nuggets would be another 3-point shooter, or someone that could stretch the floor. Maybe you develop Bol and he becomes a better player. I do think that he'll be really good.
I think he's going to be fantastic, and I'm so excited to see him play next season.
If he can stay healthy. I mean, that's for him. That's definitely the biggest thing. He's awkwardly skinny and big. It's just dangerous.
Hot and dangerous indeed. And Cluck, what was the Boston Celtics question that you had?
All right, here is the Boston Celtics question that I have for you. Are we convinced Brad Stevens is a good coach?
Ooh, okay.
Because he has not won anything. And at what point do the Celtics look at him and say, why are we underachieving? Why did we lose to the Miami Heat? Yes, the Miami Heat played fantastic basketball, and I'd love to see it. And I hope Jimmy Butler gets everything in life. And shout out Tyler Hero for balling out. We love to see that. But what has Brad Stevens done for the Celtics? Yes, he knows basketball, but in terms of winning, what has he done?
I mean, to your point, Sean, were you gonna go?
I mean, I think his team's still really young. I mean, they have so many young core players. With Jason Tatum, Marcus Smart. It's just this is Jaylen Brown.
Yeah.
Yeah. This just it's so many young, talented players, and again, it's like it's definitely a team that could win the East. I mean, if Giannis ends up moving to the West, I mean, they're gonna have basically almost a cakewalk to the finals if the Heat don't get better. But to me, it's just Jason Tatum's turning into a superstar, and I feel like he's coaching a really young team, and so I think they still are yet to reach their potential, but I do think he's actually helped make them a lot better than they could be, if they were running under a different coach or different system.
I think the thing with the Boston Celtics, and I think what we got to remember too, is that one thing I will agree with you, Cluck, is that I don't believe that he's a good when the feet are to the fire, like we saw with the Marcus Smart and Jaylen Brown situation. Like there's I feel like he needs to do a better job of managing players a little bit more. I think that he's learning that as he goes on, but I think that I think his coaching ability, and I think that everything that makes Brad Stevens the coach that he is, I do think that he's really good. I do think that he does a lot of things for this organization and for this team. But I do agree with you. I think at this point next year, I think we got to hold the feet to the fire now. I think, it's been a couple years now. We kind of talked about this Nick Nurse, Brad Stevens chess match, Eric Spoelstra, Brad Stevens chess match. And I feel like Brad Stevens needs to start winning those chess matches. And then we also need Danny Ainge to make some trades and make some moves. It feels like they hoarded all those picks back in the day. And that's kind of been the what do you call it? Like the trump card for the Boston Celtics was, they have all the picks. But eventually those picks, we got Jason Tatum, we got Jaylen Brown. But eventually those picks have to turn into something, whether we get another player, whether we get someone to come in. I do believe that we need another big, and I kind of made a video about it and a stream about it, that I would love to add a guy like Joel Embiid or a guy like Karl Anthony Towns to come join my team, or Vucevic. Just someone that stretches the floor, someone that can create space for themselves and can create offense for themselves, and we don't have to rely on guys like Theis, who's really more of a backup center more than a starting center. And I think our bench needs to be a little bit better too. I don't believe we have a good bench as well. I think that if we were to add a couple of shooters, add a couple of players that could help us, it would be a tremendous value. Obviously, Romeo Langford is a player that was taken instead of Tyler Hero, just because Tyler Hero got taken one spot ahead. But I think that, we'll see what happens with Romeo Langford. I think at worst case scenario, he's just a bog standard 3-point shooter. Best case scenario, he's the best 3-and-D shooter we have on our team. And so I think that when it comes to Brad Stevens as a coach, though, offensively, I think he's tremendous. I think defensively, it's kind of where we need to start getting better. And I think that he doesn't really focus on the defensive end of it, even though, he has one of the best kind of point guards defensively in Marcus Smart.
Yeah, and I think too, the one thing I'd like to see them kind of change is throughout this playoffs, every single time that they had a lead or the game was winding down, I think they just kind of got static and ended up playing a lot of iso ball with Tatum and with Kemba Walker. And you saw a lot of late shots in the shot clock, a lot of bad, tough shots because they're just dribbling, ISO. Okay, now I got 7 seconds. Let me go. Oh, now I got to step back and shoot a three. And so I think that's going to be the biggest thing. And I think Sean's right a little bit. They are young to a certain extent, and so that'll change with experience. But yeah, I think, next year for sure, you got to look at the Celtics and say, has this experiment run its course?
Now that you bring it up, I don't think Kemba is the answer for the Celtics. I just don't think he's a good enough pure guard. I think they could use someone, like if they traded Kemba and signed Fred VanVleet, I think they'd be a better team.
I mean, it's not a bad shout. I think that the thing with Kemba, and something I will agree with you there, defensively, we kind of got exposed, especially in that 2-3 zone. And especially when it comes to offensively, they got the mismatch on Kemba, and it's open season on him. And so I think we need to help Kemba Walker defensively. If we're going to have him in the game, we're going to have to come up with better defenders on help side, whether it's Jaylen Brown, whether it's Jason Tatum, or whether it's this new center that I'm hoping and praying that we get. I do agree, though, with the Kemba Walker assessment. I do believe that we need to start looking at getting someone that could potentially help us win games. Kind of the biggest obstacle course now. I think this was kind of the Boston, kind of looking back at it now, this was the Boston Celtics' best chance of getting to the NBA Finals, or the easiest, I should say, because not only are you just facing the Miami Heat, and the Toronto Raptors, obviously a great team, and we beat them, but now the Brooklyn Nets are going to be full of things. They're going to be back full force. The Miami Heat are still going to be favored, I feel like, to get to the NBA Finals again. I feel like, they weren't favored, but, I feel like they have a better chance now to get to the NBA Finals than ever before. You have, these other teams, Giannis has a chip on his shoulder now. Like, are we going to see a more improved Giannis, a Giannis that takes it to the next level? I think there's a lot of, to kind of quote, there's levels to this. And I think that, kind of going back to Sean's point, Kemba Walker is definitely someone that we either need to add someone defensively, like a center that can help us kind of be the weak side helper, or we're going to have to trade him and get another kind of guard, much stronger and longer, and can actually help us win games. or win games in the playoffs. That is, because I think like Cluck, I agree with you 1,000%. The frustrating thing about the Boston Celtics that whole playoff series was just watching the ISO ball when we had a chance to win two or three of those games, and then we end up going to the NBA Finals instead. I think that the lack of experience, like Sean brought its ugly head again. But also, I think Brad Stevens needs to do a better job of commanding the team and tell them, hey, we can't do this ISO ball sort of situation, because what happens is every time is that you can have a 10-point lead or a 5-point lead, but once you start going ISO and you start taking shots and you start missing them, that allows the other team long rebounds, long fast break opportunities, and then they're up 5, and then we have to call a timeout to try and get back in the game. So I do agree with you there, Cluck and Sean. I think there's a lot of levels to this, and I think the Boston Celtics are gonna have to look long and hard in the mirror.
Yeah, I think absolutely. But I think, like you said, that's going to be the biggest thing. They're going to look back at this and think this was probably our easiest shot in the sense of, just on paper of getting to the finals. And now you're going to have the Bucks coming back. Giannis might have another superstar with him. Brooklyn's going to have some boys going. It's going to be definitely a tough road.
Dean, you got anything to say? I'll take that as a no. And then I think that's going to do it here, boys. I mean, do you have anything else to add before we kind of do, if you want to move on to other sports, or if you got to go, let me know.
Yeah, it's almost lunchtime for me. Got to do some homework, but I'm trying to think if I have anything I want to add.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah, like and subscribe. Super fun being on here with you, Bernie. Let's do it again.
For sure. I mean, I know if we have more time, we can talk soccer, we can talk American football, we can talk whatever we want. I mean, that's kind of what the point of this whole live stream is. It's just kind of chill game and also just play, relax and enjoy. But like Cluck and like Sean said, guys, that's going to do it here for the Charge live stream. We went an hour 27, almost an hour 30. Thank you once again for joining me here on the Charge. Before we get going, Cluck, Sean, do you guys have anything to say to the people out there before we sign off?
Sean, you got anything to say? Silent treatment again. I'll say this: go vote, everyone. Make sure you vote. Black Lives Matter. Thank you.
And go Grizz.
As you have a dog barking in the back. And yes, Cluck, I will reiterate that sentiment 1,000%. Make sure you go vote. Do what you need to do. Make sure you don't waste that vote. And also Black Lives Matter as well. Anyway, guys, like I said, this has been your boy Bernie here on The Charge, giving you yet another video here on the channel, talking some NBA news and rumors and also basketball opinions. And guys, please remember to hit that like button. Also remember to hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel. We cover a lot of stuff out here. We talk about NBA, we talk about soccer, we talk about NFL. No matter what the topic is, we'll discuss it. While these guys go away, I will probably be playing a game here on live stream. So if you guys want to chill live stream, listen to music, make sure to continue watching this live stream. But anyway, let's say goodbye to Sean. Let's say goodbye to Cluck, and we'll catch you guys on the next NBA live stream. Peace, guys.
Thank you, Bernie.
Thanks.